Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Middle of Pack Racing League Touring Car Racing Championship for 2022. And tonight marks round 2 of the 9-round calendar, and the series continues its tour of the United States of America as part of the America's Cup for the second of the 3 rounds in the United States of America. And we are at Summit Point Raceway today in West Virginia for what is expected to be a tough, tense, and bumpy round in multiple regards. Tonight's schedule is as follows: times in Greenwich Mean Time, also known as GMT or UTC. In approximately 15 minutes time, we'll be getting underway with qualifying, the 15-minute session to determine our grid order for the purposes of our one and only race, and that is our sprint race, which will get underway at approximately 8:30 this evening. It'll be a 20-minute race. It'll be fast, it'll be furious. There's no pit stops involved in terms of scheduled pit stops. The only strategy is get to the front and keep it there to bring home the maximum possible points within your respective class. Of course, we have 2 classes of driver race in this series. We have the pros, as noted by the green car numbers, which we'll see on our timing boards, and also the AMs, who will be denoted via the orange colours. Now, in the commentary box tonight, you have myself, Paul, TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and tonight's broadcast is being brought to you via 2 media platforms. Firstly, if you are Twitch inclined, you can tune in via twitch.tv/TX141. Alternatively, if you are a YouTube user, you can tune in via my personal YouTube channel, and that is Paul Walsh on YouTube. But thank you to all those of you tuning in right now. I can see a good number of you in the chat there, including but not limited to Road Beef in the Twitch chat, also Max LP80, GT_Eddie as well in the Twitch chat. I can also see there Gingerbread at Mans, and in the YouTube chat we do have there Jason Landry, and also we've got there Duncan Maurice. And also to those of you tuning in right now and who have perhaps not got a keyboard available or a little bit shy, do not be shy. Feel free to say hi. We don't bite here, but indeed our drivers' cars will be biting. And these touring car machines, front engine, front wheel drive. Now, one other thing to note, of course, with tonight's broadcast, that this is a broadcast of a replay. So the race is not happening live right now, but it is the case this race occurred a little bit earlier in the week, but we're bringing you all the race in action if it were live. And I, as your commentator, do not know what's happened. I do not know who the winners are, who qualifies on pole. So it's a completely new experience to me, and as a result, it'll be a very raw experience to a good number of you tuning in. But as we come away from our timings and whatnot, let's go to our class standings after round number 1. So after the opening round at Laguna Seca last time out in California, it was the case in the pro class that we saw Jason Landry in a very tense battle with Tanner Dibble, Eric Nickens and Jon Lauzon, but in the end it was Jason Landry who was to take away the maximum number of points of 27 points there. Now 6 points ahead of Tanner Dibble, albeit with it being only first blood being struck, you can imagine that Dibble, Nickens and Lauzon will be looking to come back tonight. Especially Jon Lauzon, who will feel as though there's unfinished business, well, the fact that he was leading until one fatal mistake saw him dropped all the way to P4. However, let's not forget Rocco Havath and also Sam Van Olst, 2 very fast drivers. Sam Van Olst in particular putting in a stellar effort to hold on and in the end bringing home 16 vital points to kick off his championship campaign. P7, Henry Morse ahead of John Wilding in P8 with Ben Rose and Adam Day completing the top 10, and then Jordan Butler, the last of our pros, ranks there picking up 10 points, and we have the unranked drivers of Austin Farr, Conrad McCall and Tristan Bayless who we expect to participate tonight. And you can see on the total instant count there, of course, there being prizes available for the drivers in each class with the lowest number of instants scored. Jordan Butler seemingly finding a way to get a good number of instants with 18 to his name. Meanwhile, it is the case that Tanner Dibble and Ben Rose currently both on 1 instant point each. Meanwhile, in the AM class, the complexion is a little bit different. Alberto Alvarez having an absolutely phenomenal run of form at Laguna Seca at the WeatherTech Raceway and really being the dominant AM driver. And whilst in the end the gap between himself and Roger Ganesh did close over the course of the race distance, Alvarez did seem to have quite an advantage in hand. Jermaine Warnett in P3, just ahead of Justin Bragan, and Fernando Takahashi completing the top 5 there ahead of Patrick Brady, Darius Goodman, Lee Porter, Albert Brand and Tony Transu. But the one key thing we took away from the AM class, if you exclude Alberto Alvarez's runaway start to the race, indeed qualifying session, it is very tight in the AM class. The AM class incredibly closely matched. Indeed, you can imagine that any driver there in the top 10 could be right up towards the front come the end of tonight. But let's not count out Danny Kimball or Duncan Maurice, both 2 very good drivers there and in a battle between one another, and Craig Parks not too far behind. Rodney Felker and August Blondel having a difficult time at Laguna Seca, but perhaps today the West Virginian circuit of Summit Point will be more to their liking. We also do have the unranked drivers, as they were not able to participate last time out, of Edwin Onofuri, Jeff Testino, Lucas Logos, Nicholas Emmanuel, and also Stéphane Chalifou, who we're hoping to see come tonight. Now, as to the total instant count there, we can see it the case. There is Roger Ganesh, who is currently leading on 3. And remember, the smaller the number, the better. Meanwhile, it is the case inversely, 15 to Darius Goodman. He's not doing quite too good in the total instant count right now, and we're looking to try and bring those instants down a notch come the end of tonight's proceedings. As for the team championship, the team standings, we do not have a Constructors' Championship officially as such. This is a bit more of an informal championship in terms of we're recording it, but there's no prizes up for grabs as I understand it. It is Delta Motorsports at the moment leading on 43 points, 7 clear of middle of the pack, with DNA only 2 further points behind. Then we have a further 4 points to Goldwing Motorsports in P4. The Goldwing outfit will be looking to try and get themselves into the top 3 at Summit Point, with RMS Racing a further 8 points back, just ahead of Motors and Street Version. Those 3 teams in close competition for P5, and then unranked so far, but we're expecting them to arrive on the circuit tonight. Arc Sim Racing Team ahead of Ascension Racing, Pan Am Racing, and we also do have the arrival of Super GT Turtles come tonight as well. Now, where are we tonight and what is our calendar, of course? Well, we can see here we are still in stage 1 of the calendar. On round number 2, which occurred live on what was Wednesday the 9th of February, and we're bringing it to you today. Of course, we were last time out at Laguna Seca Raceway, and then next week we'll be heading to Watkins, getting to complete the America's Cup. After that, we'll be having a week's break before returning on what will be March the 4th for the broadcast, March the 2nd for the actual race, with the British Touring Cup in round number 4, Donington GP, followed by Alton Park Fosters and Silverstone International, and then there'll be another week's break before we head to stage 3, and that will pretty much conclude in April with Tsukuba, followed by Okayama, and then last but not least, Twin Ring Motegi. A good variety of circuits putting our drivers to the paces in their touring car machinery. But focusing on our track for tonight, Summit Point Raceway, located at Summit Point in West Virginia, the United States of America. And as you can see from the circuit map provided to us by simracingwiki.com, this circuit looks quite simple on paper, consisting of 10 corners, and what you can see there's a natural formation from turns 4 through to 8, known as the carousel, if you will, or a former carousel, the Summit Point carousel, where the circuit becomes very tight, very twisty, and all about and balancing it on the brakes in a downhill run from turns 4 to 5, and then balancing it on the throttle from turns 5 through to 8. But all the corners here present quite an interesting challenge, and the run from turn 10 all the way down towards turn number 1 presents great overtaking opportunities, with it being the highest speed point on the circuit, with the long run out the final corner to go on to another lap and into perhaps the heaviest braking zone into turn 1. However, this image does not tell the full story, and when we ride on board of our drives for the purposes of qualifying, the one thing I said earlier, remember that this is going to be a bumpy night in more ways than one. We're expecting a bit of elbow contact, some door-to-door contact between drivers, much like what we saw in the season opener, but also this circuit has a huge number of bumps in the road. It is effectively a countryside circuit, it can be known as, for the fact that it runs right through the West Virginian countryside, and the road surface is anything but flat, and you'll see that, and it could spell the demise or the success of a good number of drivers. Now, as for our race rules, we're just repeating the rules from last week, no rule changes. Our drivers shall be running in terms of setup the iRacing and baseline setup for all races with fuel loads restricted to 32%. These are fixed setup races, our drivers are not permitted to tune the car. Qualifying wise, the session shall be broken into 2 equal halves, the 15-minute qualifying session, with the first half being for the AM drivers, and at 7.5 minutes they'll be called in, and the second half will be for our pro drivers. And the sprint race, well, our race shall be started under a manual double file rolling start, and the formation to be held up to the start-finish line, after which drivers may go racing. So we'll get the call to go to the green a little bit earlier than that, but it will be the case that our drivers are only permitted to go racing once they have crossed the start-finish line. Each driver has 1 fast repair available in case of a bump or a scrape, and our drivers shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 25 or more instant points. As we head back to our live pictures, that's enough of rules and regulations. Now let's get ready to see how our drivers do get on in that qualifying session. As we see Alvarez here making his way down the start-finish straight here, and really the one to watch in the AM class based on his season opening performance, and really laying down a marker in terms of being in a bit of a world of his own. But again, in qualifying, he showed a tremendous amount of form. It was in the race. We seemed to be closed up a little bit, but you could argue perhaps he was backing it off. Alternatively, just simply focusing on keeping the car on the road, because there was a higher rate of attrition in the AM class at Laguna Seca. The pros less so, but definitely in the AM class, as our drivers continue to make their way on around right now with only a minute of this practice session left. Meanwhile, looking at our pros, well, Eric Nickens looks to be one of our faster drivers right now in this practice session, as we can see the street version driver making his way around in the Hyundai Electra as he comes through turns 5 and into 6, 7 he goes, and as he does right now, be looking to get some all-important points tonight as he makes his way on through. But let's not also forget, say, Tristan Bayless, who is making his debut in the series tonight in what is the Honda Civic Type R there, as he makes his way around a very colourful livery on that machine as he makes his way down. And as you all know, I do have a soft spot for the Honda Civic Type R for a good number of reasons, and it's great to see a good variety of Hondas, Hyundais and also Audi RS3s making their way on around this circuit and in this series. Speaking of Audi drivers, we do have Sam Van Olst, who really was perhaps the defensive driver of the night at Laguna Seca, holding on to what was a superb finish right at the end, holding on to that position, using the strengths of the Audi and also his great defensive driving. And will he be able to pick up another good point points haul tonight? That will be the big question facing him as we do check into the chat, and we can see there F1 Delta in the YouTube chat as we say hello to F1 Delta. Goldwing supremacy there. Indeed, we have a number of fans for Goldwing the team. We've also there got what is Andy Fox in the YouTube chat. And we say hello to Andy Fox. We also have there, well, I think that's everybody so far who I can see in the chat, but we do hope you're all doing well. And we can see Road Beef there in the Twitch chat saying we could nickname this circuit Old Lumpy. Indeed, you can nickname this circuit Old Lumpy because there's a good few lumps in terms of bumps in the road, but we will be bringing you that very shortly in terms of that perspective as qualifying commences. And it is the case that we now look to our drivers who will be coming out the pits very shortly, as I believe everybody just getting themselves set. And I think it's going to be Alberto Alvarez as we try to find our way down to the pit lane. My apologies. And there he goes. He leaves the pit lane, and it is the case. He is going to be our first AM driver to make his way out onto the circuit. Now, do keep in mind, of course, the circuit is clear at this point in time. Some marbles have been laid down on the circuit from the practice session that preceded, but right now it is the case that our AM drivers are really going to be laying down the marbles for our pros to then pick up in the second half of the qualifying session. Now, the format we did see at Laguna Seca was that it seemed as though the AM drivers went quite early in terms of trying to nail what was a good qualifying lap. We saw a few bankers go in, but it was very fast and furious in qualifying, and the laps came in very thick and fast. The pros took a bit of a different approach, however. We saw with a good number of pro drivers, they seemed to go for very early bankers and then waited for the last possible moment to set their ultimate laps. Will we potentially see some surprises? That will be the big question as we say hello in the Twitch chat to Full Frontal Thump in there, who's cheering on Road Beef, I believe, and that is, of course, cheering on Tristan Bayless, as I understand it. But as we can see it now, it is the case that Alvarez making his way around through the carousel section, if you will, and coming into turn number 8, and as he makes his way on around at this point, looking very smooth. We do also have Jeff Testino here making his way down in the Audi RS3 and coming all the way down into the carousel himself into turn number 5. Very tricky braking zone and transition from 4 to 5. There's a huge weight transfer on the rear of the car to the front of the car, but right now we do jump to Alvarez, who will be taking us around for our opening lap of this qualifying session. So making his way along the start-finish straight here in the Hyundai Electra and going on to a lap, it's the long run down towards turn number 1, and as he heads into the braking zone here, getting ready to stamp on the anchors, it is looking for the cones there, the pair of 2 cones, which will denote what is the 100-metre braking point, going through turn 1, and then the full-out right-hander immediately of turn 2, flat out through turn 2 here, and making his way all the way through now in the run-up towards the left-hander at turn number 3. You'll see here the little small undulations in the road, and as he comes into turn 3, just braking down very slightly, riding on that apex curb before rolling the car out, making sure to avoid running into the gravel, and now he's going to go through the right-hand kink of 4. As he comes downhill through 4 here, keeping it nice and tight to the apex with a little lift, and then stamping on the brakes here down into turn 5. You can see trying to settle the car as he goes down to second gear before getting back on the throttle and getting ready for turn number 6. Into the first of the 2 right-handers there, balancing the throttle now and just gradually building up the speed as he comes through. Goes through turn number 7 here, and now up into 3rd gear. It's a full pedal out to turn number 8, up into 4th gear, and now into turn number 9. A lift off the throttle here, balancing the car through the corner, using the exit curve there to its full extension, and now one more corner away. Into turn 10 he goes, and here it will be a small dab on the brakes, and bringing the car down a gear to 4th gear, getting it nice and tight. Drifting a little bit there, a little bit of understeer, causing him to go slightly wider than he would have liked from the apex, but a smooth lap there from Alvarez in the Hyundai, and well, that is going to be setting our marker in this qualifying session. It's a 1:16.365, and we'll have to wait and see who else can pull off a good lap as we see Craig Parks making his way on down, and we've also got Gus Blundell making his way down. Blundell there setting a faster lap than what were almost as fast a lap as Alvarez. As Parks sets the fastest lap so far, but everybody bringing in those lap times as we see a little bit further back around the circuit. We do have Tony Tran here in the Honda making his way on through. And in terms of our predictions for the car that might be the best car around here, well, we did talk about last time out at Laguna Seca where the Audi really was the one-lap pace car. The Hyundai seemed to be the jack of all trades, and the Honda seemed to be the race car due to its ability to be very nice on the brakes. Having done a little bit of research, I have found out the Honda is not as sensitive to curves as it used to be when it was first introduced to iRacing. The suspension was modified in a balance of performance update a little while back, but it is the case the Honda very strong on the brakes and really is very, very daring on the brakes compared to the other cars around it as those lap times are coming in. But we are expecting the Hyundais and the Audis to be the stronger cars here, and the Honda's going to have to do a lot of work in the race in order to gain those places. But I say that, Jermaine Warren right now, currently provisional P2, only 2 attempts off of Craig Parks as he makes his way around right now in the Black Machine as he comes roaring on through, and looking good so far is Warren. But remember, a lot of our drivers will have been putting in banker laps here. They won't have been going to their full potential, and well, as you can see from the pictures right now, Alvarez raises himself to a 15.844. This circuit has a lot of little bumps in the road, and that can really unsettle the cars. We see there an Audi getting it very wrong just ahead, and I do believe, I'm not sure, I don't think that was Ganesh getting it wrong. I think that was Jermaine, well no, it was not Jermaine Warren. We're looking at Jermaine Warren, my apologies. That was Fernando Takahashi getting it very wrong there and having to take the runoff, as we can see Duncan Maurice here going up into P3 in the Honda Civic as he makes his way down into the braking zone for turn number 1 once again. Now as he comes on down at this point, we're also hearing that Jeff Testino has improved, as we can see the Audi driver here making his way on down. But it is right now 2 Hyundais who are occupying the top 2 spots, and then 2 Hondas, then an Audi, and then a Hyundai. So we have got a bit of car variety, but it does seem as though Hyundais have a bit of an advantage here, or could it just be their drivers? Of course, there's always that big question. As we do see Stefan Chalifou taking to the circuit, we're happy to see Chalifou making his way on around right now as he comes on down into the braking zone. Currently provisional P10 in the 219 machine in the Honda there as he comes into turn number 1 and 2 and making his way on through. We do also have the introduction of a new driver who signed up for following round number 1, and that is the Hyundai Electra driver here who we pan to, and that is Mark Senecal, who's making his way around on his debut, and I believe he is racing as part of the GT Super Turtles team as he makes his way. Going a bit too high in the apex curve there of turn number 4, but the Hyundai having quite good lateral stability as it goes over curves, so as a result he's able to do that. He's got to be careful that because he could be punished quite heavily in the race as he makes his way on through. And well, we see there in the Twitch chat, Roby saying, interesting seeing so many Glen rear brake discs, and we saw a lot of Glen rear brake discs at what was Laguna Seca, particularly the Hyundais with a lot of Glen brakes, and we are imagining that our drivers will be trying to move their brake biases towards the rear of the car. So one of the things they're allowed to adjust on the car, because it is driver preference brake bias, and they'll be trying to do that to give themselves extra rotation, particularly through turns 5 through to 8. That's where the rotation will be critical through the carousel as he makes his way across the time, and now does Senecal, and we're expecting him to put in his first lap of this session, and it's going to be a 1:17.964, a little bit off the pace compared to his peers, albeit I say that he is only 200ths off of Kimball, and Danny Kimball making his way on around right now and going a bit wide out the final corner, taking a bit of a rallycross line there, and you are encouraged to be aggressive out the final corner, but not too aggressive. You don't want to be picking up daisies at the end of the day as he makes his way on down. But this qualifying session for the AMS coming towards its end now, only a minute to go. The pros will be soon be given the green light to make their way out onto circuit, and we see Lee Porter here, currently P11 overall and in class. Of course, we're going to be seeing the pros filter their way in, but right now it does look as though Craig Parks has really set the pace in the Motors machine as he makes his way out of the final corner here. This is not going to be an improving lap, but he will get one more lap in, and he does have a car in front of him in the form of Gus Blondell, who he can use as a bit of a distant tow down into turn number 1 if he gets his cards right here as he makes his way all the way down into the braking zone as he comes on down and makes his way on through. It is the case that we can see Craig Parks now going for one more lap as Duncan Maurice there improves in the Honda to a 16.050, but he is still 1.5 tenths off of Alvarez, and well, he's going to have one more lap here, but I do think that Maurice has decided to back off, taking a very middle of the road line, and he's going quite slowly there for the opening corner. I think that's everything for him, and meanwhile Jermaine Warren trying to get in the lap right now as he makes his way on around the circuit. But as he does, here we are halfway through this qualifying session, so the pros have been given the green light. They are permitted to start coming out. As Senecal has improved to a 17.049, and that's a great improvement there to putting in P12 in class. And I think now is the case that the AM's really calling it a day as Danny Kimball does improve to a 17.298, but you can see the traffic jam now of pro drivers coming out of the pits and intermixing as they all make their way down. But it is looking as though everybody's bringing it to an end in the AM class, although I say that on a Ferrari here making his way through, and well in the Hyundai on his debut looking very smooth so far as he comes out of what was turn number 4 there, but I think that is a return to garage lap. So with that, we now have our pros making their way on around, and it is the case that Adam Day here, we can see in the Motors machine making his way around in the Hyundai as he comes out of turn 4, or sorry, out of turn 3 and makes his way up to turn 4 I should say, and we are expecting some very fast laps from our pro drivers here. The best lap times normally coming in somewhere in the region of about 1:14. We're predicting it is a short lap around here compared to Laguna Seca last time out, albeit it does look a long lap given the length of the straight, but this lap does go very thick and fast, and you can imagine our drivers will be up in the tempo now as the pros go to the circuit. Of course, a lot of rubber having been laid down, and well, it will be the case that we have Reko Havav who takes us around for the opening qualifying lap in the pro session. So coming out of the final corner then, charging down in the Honda Civic Type R here, and this will give you a perspective of the difference between the Hyundai and the Honda. Now we're expecting him to go very late on the brakes here into turn number 1. Coming down to the braking zone then, sighting his brake mark, it'll be about the 2 cones, and as he comes down through the gearbox here, down to second gear, gets it nice and tight to the apex and powers out immediately through turn 2 he goes here, flat on the throttle now, up into 3rd gear, a bit of a short shift there to rotate the car, up into 4th, and now making his way up into turn number 3. coming into the braking zone here, up into 5th temporarily before coming down to 4th gear, and as he rolls the car through a very smooth line there, not carrying as much speed as our Hyundai driver who we rode with earlier, but a very smooth line, and now coming into 4th, it's going to be a lift. And as he comes down to the braking zone for 5, coming down from 5th gear all the way down to 2nd. A bit tight to the apex there at turn 5. That is going to cost him a 10th overall in terms of lining the car as he makes his way for the carousel. But as he balances the car on the throttle now, coming out to 6, using the full width of the road there through 6 into 7. And as he comes into 8, now it's going to be full commitment as he goes up the gearbox into turn number 9. A little bit of a lift there in 4th gear. He's just about nailed it, although the car drifted a little bit wide. But as he comes down in towards turn number 10, it's not the perfect lap, but it's looked good so far. One more corner. Bringing the car down to 4th here, a nice tight apex. You can see the bump there in the road just causing the car to unsettle, but he keeps it together. And as he makes his way across the timeline right now, Horvath's going to set the pace in what is the pro session, and it's a 16.0 to kick things off. And Jason Landry at 16.3. It was a very impressive lap, to be fair, from Horvath, and really, I think, going all in. But I say that, then Jon Lauzon sets an even better lap, and then Austin Farr sets a 15.671. An absolutely sensational lap there from Farr to take that provisional pole overall and in the pro class. But to be fair, there's going to be plenty more laps to come in from our pro drivers here, because we are only one lap in terms of one flying lap, and there is going to be even more to come. As you see John Wilding here, only best of P7 in his class, P15 overall right now. And we should point out, ladies and gentlemen, that in qualifying, as they line up in this qualifying order on the left hand side of your screen, that is how they will line up on the grid. There will be no segregation of the pros amongst the AMs. So as an AM driver, you want to qualify ahead of some pros. You want to get yourself some pros between you and your AM peers behind, because then, remember, it is the case the pros want to come on through, but there's no reward for battling between classes. It is the case you're only battling the drivers within your class of points, and that is something you want to do as an AM driver, particularly Craig Parks and also Alvarez right now, really in a world of their own, it would seem. But Craig Parks taking that pole position in the AM class. As we continue to focus on our pros, it is the case plenty more lap times to come on in as we do look a little bit further down the order. And Conrad Macau here making his way into the final corner. What can the Hyundai driver do as Jason Landry improves the pole position time to a 15.620, but what about Macau as he comes across the line? And as he does here, Austin Farr sets a 15.4 and Macau sets a 15.6 on his opening qualifying lap here. It is looking as though it's going to be very close as they make the way on around. We can see Henry Morse improves to a 15.7. In the Audi there. The Audi, however, struggling a little bit by comparison to the Hondas and also the Hyundais at the very top of the field here. And it's very interesting to see how there's that difference where in the AM class we've really seen the Hyundai shine. Meanwhile, in the Pro class, it would seem that the Honda is on a very similar level to the Hyundai here, and in the Audi it's just a little bit off the pace by comparison. But then again, it could just be as much down to the driver as the car choice, and that's why we do have that Drivers' Championship in the fact it comes down to drivers' ability in making their choice of car. What they all had the option to pick between the Audi RS3, the Hyundai Electra and the Honda Civic Type R, and what our drivers come with the car that suits them best and the calendar best, they would argue. As we see Nickens here making his way on through in the meantime, and as he comes through turn number 3 right now, a little bit lonesome on circuit, but he's got plenty of track space, and that's going to give him a good amount of breathing room. But you can see on our circuit map there, Nickens really all alone by himself going down through turn 4, and then we just have that massive queue of pros making their way around, coming across that timeline all the way tailing back to turn number 9, and Nickens, I think, feeling very comfortable in qualifying by himself. But we have to look away from him for a little bit as we do look to Macau, who's just improved that pole time to a 15.387, and he parks it up there. I think he's going to be jumping to the pits very shortly as Jason Landry goes on around for another lap. Now, with only 2 minutes to go, we've got 2 more laps for most of our drivers here who do not jump to the pits, although Macau thinks he's done enough. He has jumped to the pits as I look out my commentary box window, and as Landry makes his way on through, well, Tanner Dibble, one of his rivals, the Audi driver here, P11 overall, P9 in class. It is not the day for Audi. The best place Audi right now is Morse, Henry Morse, P7 overall. That is P6 in class, and I do think that the Audis are struggling here today as we see the DNA Motorsport driver at Dibble making his way up into turn number 3 right now. And well, what could be the cause of it? I think it could be the gearbox on that Audi, where it is very shortly and tightly geared. It may just be costing the vehicle time through a lot of the low speed corners from turn 4 all the way through to turn number 8. That fact is balancing on the gearbox quite heavily, and a lot of up and down shifts, which cost time, of course, even even with these semi-automatic twin-clutch transmissions as he makes his way through turn number 5 and up into 6-7. But as we look from him right now and head a little bit up further up, we can see Rocco Horath has improved, and Jason Landry has also improved. It's the case Horath has moved himself up into PA overall. Landry has improved, but no gain, just an improved lap time to a 15.4. But the best lap of this session is a 15.39, and that's Conrad Macau, who's in the pits. As we do see Jordan Butler improves there in the Honda. He has improved for DNA Motorsport to a 15.735 here, so he's getting a bit closer, and this field looking very ferocious indeed. As we do just split the timing boards very quickly for you, ladies and gentlemen, to give you an idea of how everything has played out in terms of those top fives. As you can see, it's Macau on pole for the Bros right now with Austin Farr and the Jason Landry Day, and then it's Bayless behind in P5, and meanwhile in the AM class it's going to be Parks, Alvarez, Marais, Warren and Onofre completing the top 5 there in qualifying, as we are coming to the end of the session now. And as our drivers make their way on around, we look back to our full timing screen here with the final qualifying laps coming on in. And as we do, well, will we see any of our Audi suddenly come out in left field and set an absolute stonker of a lap? I think it's going to be the case. We're not going to be seeing anything at the moment as the checker flag is out, and we're just taking a look at Van Olsten. In fact, we ride on board with the Audi driver the second half of his lap as he makes his way on around. And just look at the dashboard there on the left-hand side. We'll see Eric Softon balancing the car in 4th gear. I think it is the case. The car is running very close to the rev limiter, as in fact they almost hit the rev limiter coming through turn number 9. And that may be a sign as to why the Audi is not as happy around here as he comes down into turn number 10. He has to drop to 4th here, and as he makes his way through, Van Olsten better in sector 1, but he runs very wide coming out as the final corner. That's going to cost him the time. I don't think it's going to be an improvement. He's pushed it a bit too far, and in the end it is not an improvement for the Audi driver. The best he can do is P14 or P12 in class, and he may be pipped to the post, although I say that the only driver yet to, well, I think everybody has finished this qualifying session, so it is going to be the case that Conrad Macau takes pole position in the end ahead of what was Austin Farr and Jason Landry in the Pro class, and in the AM class it is Craig Parks who in the end takes pole position by a small margin over Alvarez and Marais. And now we wait for the race to commence. A very close qualifying session, but it's definitely the case that Craig Parks really setting himself apart in the AM class, and will send in the message to Alvarez, I think, look, you are not going to be the runaway horse. You are not going to be the only show in our class as they wait to go racing. But well, indeed, I can see in the YouTube chat there, Jason Landry saying Macau throwing down the mic and walking away. Indeed, Conrad Macau literally turning up and putting in an absolutely ferocious lap. And whilst we are waiting for Knowles right now to just make his way into the pits here as he comes on around, it is the case. Well, I think all of our drivers now just itching to go racing. As you see, Van Olst just gradually coming into the pits here. I think it is the case that all of our drivers will have practiced the pit entry at least once just to get used to it in case they do pick up damage in the race, as we do get the transition over now to the race session. So, with the transition over then, ladies and gentlemen, let's go through that grid. Lining up on the front row, taking pole position overall and in the Pro class, it's Conrad Macau, who took pole in the end by 600ths ahead of Jason Landry. The second row, Adam Day and Tristan Bayless, with Austin Farr and Craig Parks, are pole position for the AM class in P6 on the third row. Jordan Butler and Henry Morse on row number 4, with Rocco Hovath and Jon Lauzon on row number 5. Outside the top 10, row number 6, Alberto Alvarez and Eric Nickens on row 6, then followed by Sam Van Olst and Tanner Dibble. Then it's Duncan Maurice and Jermaine Warren on row number 8, with John Wild and Edwin Onofre on row number 9. Lee Porter and Roger Ganesh complete our top 20, top 10 rows there, with Auguste Blondel and Fernando Takahashi on row number 11. Albert Brand and Mark Senegal on row number 12, and they are followed by Stefan Chalafu and Danny Kimball on row number 13. Jeff Destino and Patrick Brady line up P27, P28. Rodney Felker and Justin Braggan completing our 15th row. And then last but not least for Sunday GT Turtles, it is Tony Tran, who did not set a qualifying time much like Justin Braggan, but has been classified as P31 and last of our qualifying positions. But that is the grid, ladies and gentlemen, and now we are ready to go racing for round number 2 of the Touring Car Racing Championship, brought to you by Middle of the Pack Racing. It is Summit Point Raceway, and we are only moments away from going charging off for 20 minutes of racing action here, as the grid is set, and now all of our drivers will be making their way away as we do look to the blimp very briefly. Unfortunately, we've got quite a few trees in the way, so I do apologise for that. The blimp camera not in the best of positions, but we do instead look back to our TV camera, and the safety car, the pace car, pulls away. It'll be a short formation, and it will be to Conrad Macau, who takes us to the start-finish line and gets us underway for 20 minutes of action. It's lights out and away we go as they cross the start-finish line for round number 2. They come charging down towards turn number 1 here, and we can see Mosar drive side by side, but Conrad Macau nailing the start there and getting ahead of Jason Landry and able to position himself into turn 1. And they all concertina into the corner now. Most drive side by side as they come through that braking zone, but everybody coming through safely so far as they make their way through. Roger Ganesh, they're having a bit of a poor run and bouncing over the apex of turn 1, but everybody has made the opening corner safely, and as they make their way up through turn number 3 and charge towards 4, up towards the carousel, it is the case that Henry Moore's getting ahead of Butler, but it does look as though he's had a poor run out the corner, and as they make their way down into the carousel, coming into 4, you can see just a little bit further back there, Rocco Buff on the inside of what is Lauzon. Lauzon getting his nose ahead. Oh, sorry, that's Alvarez as we see behind. A bit of contact there. Lauzon getting tapped on the rear, and meanwhile that's Horav who's gone off circuit. We've got multiple drivers who've had a run wide there, I think through some contact, and as they make their way on through right now, it is the carousel for the first time of asking. The corner has caught a number of drivers out. There have been some contacts, but I think the stewards will be taking a look at those after the race. But as we look from the midfield a bit further up the order, we can see here it's the case that Adam Day chasing after Tristan Bayless, and he's not going for the move on him, but he's looking for the move on Austin Farr as they come into the corner here. But it's the case that Day has to back out of some contact on the back of Farr as they make the way to the start-finish line. So come the end of lap number 1, it's Macau leading by what is 4 tenths of a second ahead of Jason Landry in P2. There's Tristan Bayless here in a mad scramble for P3 as they come romping down in towards the first corner once again. The Honda on the inside here. On the right-hand side, he's got Day trying to go all the way down the outside under braking. Can Adam Day get it done here as they make the way on through? It doesn't look like it. They go side by side, and as they exit, Bayless gets back up to speed. Behind, it's Henry Morse in P5, followed by Austin Farr in P6. Then we've got Jordan Butler P7. Then our leader in the AM class, but under a lot of pressure there. That's Craig Parks in P8, the Motors driver, as he makes his way into the corner. He's got Alvarez going around the outside, and Alvarez with a very good move there as we see Bayless, and also I think that's Van Olst running wide. My apologies. And as they come down in towards turn number 4 right now, it is all kicking off. That was Morse running wide, I apologise. And as they come down to turn number 4, it is the case, and through 5, they are really kicking off right now, and you can see Bayless here having to go ultra defensive through 6 and 7 as a lock up on the brakes there. I think that was from far behind as they come through the right-handers, and as they make their way into the left-hander at turn 8 right now, it is really intensifying as the 2 leaders are trying to break away. But as they come through right now, they all settle back down into an order as a bit further back we can see a pack of 4 making their way out towards turn number 10, and it's Nickens at the back of that pack. At the head of it, I do believe that is Van Olst and Lauzon as they come into the braking zone here, and as they come through the right-hander, it's going to be Nickens who goes round the outside. There's contact there as we have a spin. That's Craig Parks who's turned, and I'm not sure who he's in contact with, but he has been turned, Craig Parks, and he is now down and out of the running for the time being as they make the way onto lap number 3. They come charging down once again, but you can see Van Olst here going for the move up the inside of what is Lauzon as they come on down. A little bit further back, meanwhile, we can see Dibble here holding on versus Maurice, the AM driver, who's trying to get past in Goldwing Motorsports versus Horav. He just wants to move up the order and go chasing after Alvarez, who's not too far up the road as they make their way up towards turn number 3. And it's Maurice who goes defensive. He's really trying to get a message through as there's a little bit of a tap there, side by side. This circuit is prone to taps, bumps and scrapes as they make them through. We've got 4 drives into the pits. 4 drives into the pits. That is Bragan, Parks, Warren and Kimball. They've all been in incidents on the opening laps. But meanwhile, we look a bit further up the road and we can see here Tristan Bayless really in a bit of contact there with what is Butler. The 2 of them make it on through. And I think it was the case that Bayless would argue that his nose was being closed off there and he couldn't make the car disappear, and Butler would argue, well, you shouldn't have your nose there in the first place. But whichever way they want to point their noses, it is the case they carry on racing, and Bayless has got back ahead for the time being as they make their way down into the final corner here, and the top 2 really breaking off into the distance as they make their way on down. But as they do, Eric Nickens losing the rear of the car. Oh my good lord, and Nickens rolling the car across the circuit, and that has gone very, very wrong for Eric Nickens. The street versions driver is up on his roof. We're just going onto the glass very briefly. He's jumped to the pit, but we can see meanwhile Conrad Macau holding on to the lead for the time being with Adam Day behind in P3 as they make the way through turn number 1 and into 2 on lap number 4. Now as they come on through in the meantime, we can see it's the case the top 2 just breaking away at the bottom of your picture, but meanwhile the rest of the pack really queuing up here, and Alvarez in a horrible place as Van Olst comes up the inside, and you can see that Lauzon literally saying to Alvarez, you stay well clear, you are not putting yourself between me and Van Olst as they make their way up into turn number 4 right now. He's putting his foot down and going for it. Lauzon. He will feel as though he has had the worst start out of our top 10, and we can see there's contact between Tristan Bayless and Jordan Butler. They've both been in the wars, and it looks like Butler up on the fence there, and I don't think they're going to be getting that car down. He is pitched up on the fencing, and for Butler that is his race over by looks of things, as we can see here, and he has had to jump to the pits. That's very unfortunate, and Tristan Bayless rocking on as we can see Horav coming on through right now as the Delta Motorsports driver gains another position. Now that's only 5 minutes complete, and if this is any indicator, this race is only going to intensify. But we look a little bit further down the order and we can see with all this going on that we've got our AM drivers here, the AM mid-pack, and that's Patrick Brady, the privateer, who's chasing after Takahashi right now, and he's currently in P6 in the class, but he goes very deep, and it's an opportunity for Scott Blondell to close up here, and we ride on board as the Hyundai drivers are immediately going to come roaring on through their maximum speed on their side-by-side as they come down. That Audi showing how much acceleration it's got in the mid gears, and as they come into the braking zone here, can Blondell go all the way round? It does look as though Brady's just coming back at him. Very nicely done by Brady, but Blondell's now going to get the cut back out of turn number 2, and that's the run up towards turn 3, and you can see here it's going to go into the left-hand kink very shortly, and as they do, Blondell's going to try and go all the way round, but Brady's going to keep his nose there. He goes very deep on the brakes, and Blondell once again looks at the cutback, but this time he's not got the momentum to do it as they make their way up towards turn number 4. Meanwhile, further back, I can tell you, Stefan Chalifu right now is under a bit of he's putting a bit of pressure, I should say, on Tran just ahead of the two Honda drivers as they make the way up into what is turn number 3 for them, but they're quite a way off the pace right now and really battling for P11 in their class. P22 overall is their battle as they make the way on up into turn number 4 here, and as they come down into the braking zone, I think both of them just enjoying a little bit of racing and battling for some more important points, and we can see both drivers, they're keeping it together as they come into the carousel, but we look from them to up towards our race leaders right now. As you can see coming out the pits there, that is Butler, who's just coming down out, and meanwhile Macau holding on as we ride on board the gearbox here of the Delta Motorsports driver. Well, I believe as he comes on through here, it is going to be the case that he's going to be under a lot of pressure as he comes out of turn number 2 and makes his way up to turn number 3. Now, as they come on up into the left-hander here, well, we saw with Landry just how when he lost the lead at Laguna Seca, he was an ever-present thorn in whoever was leading in front of him, and that's the art he has. He just has that ability to hang very close behind as they make their way up into turn number 4 right now. Both of them are in the Hyundai, so it's going to come down to the drivers driving here rather than the machinery giving one an advantage over the other as well on top of that. And as they make their way through turn 5 and up into 6 right now, both of them on very similar lines, but Landry just seemingly able to close a little bit more under braking. I think he's brave on the brakes here. But we do have to keep in mind, with this being a 20-minute race, and after the opening 15 minutes, with the brake temperatures going high and those front tyres taking a real pounding, that can mean that some of the cars start to wear off a little bit, or some drivers start to experience a little bit of heavy tyre wear, a little bit of brake fade starts to kick in, and that might be right now what Macau is trying to do. He's trying to balance the car on that front end and protect the front end for later in the race. Remember, our drivers are all in front engine, front-wheel drive machines. It means all the work is done by the front tyres, the drive and also the steering, and that can really hurt the car as they go on to another lap here and roar their way down towards turn number 1. But it looks as though our top 2 just staying firm right now, and neither driver gaining an advantage, but Landry looking very good. Meanwhile, a bit further back in the rear view camera shot, it's now our focus. We can see here Henry Moore's holding off Alvarez, and Alvarez, the AM driver here, going on the full offensive here versus his pro peers. And I think at this point he's trying to get the message through. Just because it says you're pro on the tin doesn't mean I can go racing with you, as they make the way out of turn 2 and up into 3. But in doing that, Van Ulster's now got himself up the outside here of Alvarez as they come into the corner. And really, does Alvarez need to be battling like this? He's enjoying the battling, there's no doubt about that, but he's putting himself at risk. It only takes one knock and he could potentially see his racing's tears. We see Lauzon here looking for the move into 4, and he doesn't quite get himself fully alongside there, but he was looking intimidating. He can't find it into 5 either. As they make the way through 5 and into the carousel this time, a little bit further back, we can see Adam Day there in the Motors machine as he makes his way through turn number 6 and into 7, staying right there. And as he comes on through the right-hander of 7 right now, looking good. But the problem is, of course, he does have Dibble right behind him, and Tanner Dibble, one of our higher placed Audi drivers right now. The highest placed one is in P4, of course, and that is Morse, as they make the way down towards turn at number 10. But you can definitely see how Morse is breaking away from Alvarez behind him. Alvarez really proven to be a bit of a rolling roadblock as they make the way around and come towards the end of what for them is lap number 7, and they go on to lap number 8. We're almost at the halfway point right now, and this race so far, even though it's not quite halfway done, has been full of drama and incidents, and also great overtaking action. And Tristan Bayless, one of many drivers right at the heart of a good number of battles, as he makes his way down in towards turn number 1, and as he comes into the braking zone here, going a little bit defensive versus Rocco Havaf here, and we can see some smoke coming off of the driver's edge, just a little bit of brake dust kicking up, and that shows you how hard they're working those front brakes in this battle between one another. And as they make the way up towards turn number 3 right now, it is the case. I think neither driver able to gain, but one driver who is trying to gain as much as possible right now, as there's a bit of dust kicked up there. That's on the gravel track. We can see it's Lauzon here who tries to go around the outside into 4 versus Van Ols, but it's a feint. It's an attempt at a cut back into 5, and he tries to then go for the double cut back here through 5. He gets it, but will he be fully alongside? Well, as they make their way through the corner here, we ride on board, and you can see side by side as they emerge through turn 6 and into 7, and Lauzon doing everything in his power, but Van Ols just proving to be an unstoppable machine in terms of defending, and it is the case that when you can't behind the nose, you are up against a brick wall, and it's very hard to break that wall down. We saw it at Laguna Seca, and we're seeing it again. He may not be the fastest, but my goodness, he is showing his credentials at being one of the best defensive drivers as they make the way out the final corner. It is the case that Lauzon just understeering a little bit there, and he pulls over to the right hand side here, and the reason he does that, if you're wondering, is because Adam Day tucked into the slipstream there as we look back to the third person perspective, and you can see it's the case that Adam Day trying to go all the way around the outside in the long run down towards one, but I think it's going to be the case Lauzon's going to go late on the brakes, but a bit fair actually, Lauzon backing off there, and a bit further back we can see it's the case that Rocco Avaf just holding off Wilding in the meantime, but meanwhile Adam Day going for the mother of all runs now out of turn number 3, and Lauzon trying to get the cut back on him in and round the outside. They come into left-hander 3, the brake discs are glowing red hot on both cars at the rear, and there's a little bit of door-to-door contact. I'm not sure if that was netcode contact or actual car contact, but regardless, Lauzon being tapped a bit wide, and the Audi there of what is Dibble going sideways and down into the wall. Oh goodness me, and Dibble just with the tiniest moment on the grass with the rear left-hand tyre, and it's all gone wrong for the Audi driver, and he is retired to the pits. They're going to have to do a lot of repair work on that car, but it may be the case that his race is over as we look back towards Bayless right now, who's trying to pursue Lauzon, who was involved in that series of moment racing down into turn number 4, and it was the case that in the end, well, one driver came off short, and it was Tanner Dibble who lost out massively, as right now Lauzon, I think, nursing some damage on the car as well, and Tristan Bayless now looking to cut him as they make the way down across that tyre line once again, and as they come charging across here, well, the elbows are definitely coming out, and it is the case at Summit Point, well, I think it is a case of a rush of blood's going to the summit of one's head as they make the way down into the braking zone here. I think all of our drivers getting hot and feisty as we see Bayless trying to go around the outside, and it's a very nicely set up move. He's going to have the inside run into turn number 3, and as they make the way, and I think there's going to be Adam Day ahead of him, who's going to be celebrating the fact he's given 5 seconds to breathe as they make the way through. But you can see just how tight this circuit is, and there Lauzon with his right hand side tyres almost on the grass, right on the white lines as they make the way into the braking zone for turn number 4. Now as they roll on down, in the meantime, I can tell you it hasn't been shown on camera, but Jason Landry is now leading this race ahead of what is Macau. We missed the overtake, but it is the case that the Delta Motorsports drivers have swapped positions, and it is Landry who is now leading and trying to run off into the distance with an advantage of what is half a second. As we look from him, the leader of our Pro class, to our leader of what is the AM class here, and Duncan Maurice is having a very good run. Now, you saw earlier some dust being kicked up coming out of turns 1 and 2. That was Alberto Alvarez, who had an absolutely horrible run out of the corner and lost over 9 seconds of time running wide at turn 1. So Alvarez right now is a bit behind. You can see him here giving that pursuit once again as they all make the way now onto lap number 11 here. They're all line astern this time as they come charging on down the straight. And well, with 7 minutes to go as Lee Porter has jumped to the pits, we can see just a bit ahead there. Rocco looking for the move. Rocco off, but he can't quite find it versus Lauzon. He has to wait. But in the AM class right now, things have calmed down a little bit, it should be said. Although I do say that, and it's the case that Rodney Felker and Mark Senegal here battling one another, and I do believe that is the Sunday GT Turtles driver of Senegal, who's had a bit of a poor run coming out the final corner, been on the grass, and now we see Shalafu trying to go round the outside. Here does the Audi driver. He can't quite find it. Instead, finds a face full of rear bumper there of the Hyundai. Shalafu, look, well, that's not Shalafu. That is, well, it's the case. That is, I believe that's Bragan, actually, who is a lap down behind. My apologies, ladies and gentlemen. And it is the case that Bragan trying to unlap himself, but Senegal not wanting that to happen for an understandable reason as they make the way on out. A bit further up the road, however, we do have Felker here. Well, he has got him. Well, that is Felker, and behind him is Parks, who is a lap down as well. So we do have a number of drivers who are carrying on the race, albeit a lap down, and trying to soldier on to the finish. But the AM class pretty spaced out with Patrick Brady here in P16 overall. That is P6 in class right now in the AM class as he makes his way on through turn number 9 and just keeping it together. But you can imagine it may all come back together, some of our AM drivers a little bit later on. But it is right now the pros who have really got all the battles occurring as they make their way on around. But as they come through at this time, it is a situation with Patrick Brady coming on to another lap a bit further down the road. I can tell you that Eric Nickens right now, well, he is chasing after Tanner Dibble after both drivers have been in the wars. Dibble, of course, seeing the front end of his Audi completely stripped clear out of turn number 4 with that incident earlier on in the race, and even earlier, Eric Nickens deciding to do a triple cartwheel coming out of the final corners. We do see there Dibble running very wide out of 3, and he has to back off there and run down to Vob for gaining time or gaining an advantage by running off. And meanwhile, Jon Lauzon is in the wall there out of turn number 3. The car's gone straight into the wall and it's just parked up there Now, I'm not sure if there was any contact with another driver, but what I can tell you, Lauzon, one of our drivers who really was in the wars with a number of other drivers, has now, well, I think it's a retirement for Jon Lauzon. He's gone to the pits. He's definitely jumped to the pits. They're going to be doing repair work on the car, but I think Lauzon's race now is going to be outside the top 20 for the rest of today, unless he can pull off a miracle, or we do see a number of incidents further up the road. But meanwhile, as the racing continues here, we're looking at Sam Van Olsten in the meantime, chasing after his teammate Henry Morse as they make the way into the final corner. But I think these two running now in a bit of a formation just to bring it to the end. They both been in some severe battles and running together. The Goldwing Motorsports team will be very happy to see P4, P5 on the cards for their pro drivers as they make their way down into turn number 1. As they come roaring on down this time, with now only 4 minutes to go plus the final lap here, and well, things have quietened down to a small degree. It is the case that we do look from our pro class back to our AM class, and well, Roger Ganesh right now, as he comes across that timeline, he has got there as he makes his way into the right hand of the Sunday GT Turtles driver. He does have Fernando Takahashi behind him, and we ride on board here with the Audi driver, who's really trying to come back into this race now in terms of the Audi just bringing it alive as he comes into turn number 3. Now, as they make their way through the corner here, you'll notice Takahashi a little bit hesitant to ride too close to the outside of the road under braking there. Meanwhile, it was the case that Ganesh really using the full width of the road. I think it is the case that some drivers around here, where it may be a little bit of inexperience in racing around Summit Point, it is such a tight circuit to be fair, and you are required to use as much width of the road as possible. It's a countryside circuit, as we see it there, Ganesh getting it wrong into what was the carousel. They're going very deep into 6 and having to bring the car back together, and Takahashi will be looking at this and I think grinning and thinking, okay, I can potentially go for a move down the start-finish straight. Now, as they make their way out of the corner, you can see there the Audi bouncing almost off the rev limiter, demanding a shift there on the dashboard. And as they come up into 10, can Takahashi nail this corner and get himself nice and close? He turns in a little too early there. You can see he just had to readjust the steering wheel, and in fact he's lost out that potential run. But speaking of runs, it is the case a bit further up the road. We can see Adam Day here battling side by side with what is Sam Van Olst as they make their way through the opening corner, and Van Olst holds on for now. This is the battle for P5 in the pro class as they make their way out of 2 and up into 3 with 3 minutes remaining. Now the gloves do come off at this point, and as they come up into turn number 3, it is the case that Van Olst really having to just hold on, as it does look as though Adam Day has decided to take 2 wheels off the road. And as they make their way down into turn number 4, he's not close enough right now as they come into the braking zone for the carousel. But as they come on in this time, you can see Tristan Bayless right behind them as well, and it is the case that all 3 drivers now pressing on as we ride on board here with Tristan Bayless, who really is in the popcorn seat in terms of he gets to watch all the action between the 2 in front and then try to find some action of his own as they make their way through 7 and up into 8 here. Now, what will be going through his mind? Well, I think in his mind, given the fact there's not too much racing to go now, there's only 2 more laps after this one, I think he'll be hoping that the 2 in front really compromise one another and potentially take one off. You can see Van Olst going defensive here down into 10, and there's contact between the 2 of them, and it's the case Van Olst is turned across the road, and Tristan Bayless comes up very close behind there what is Adam Day, and I think Adam Day at this point now in the drag race, and I think he'll be thinking to himself, great, I'm going to have the stewards give me a rap on the wrist as they make their way down towards turn number 1 as we see Van Olst returning to the circuit in the rear of your picture, but Bayless is looking up the inside here and making a bit of a recovery drive after being in the wars earlier on as they make their way into the corner. A classic move into 1, but he doesn't get the door shut in time, and Adam Day comes back as they make their way up towards 3. Now, as they do, you can see Rocco Horafa, I should say, who's also trying to get into the mix here as they make their way into the corner, but it is Adam Day who goes round the outside and gets it done for now as they make their way up towards turn number 4. Now, as they come roaring on down into the braking zone, it is the situation I do think that as they come into that heavy braking zone at turn number 5, well, Adam Day goes a little bit deep but keeps it together. But whilst this is going on, ladies and gentlemen, I should point out to you, and it's just been brought to my attention in the chat there by Henry Morse in the YouTube chat, that Austin Farr has been flying since the midpoint of this race and is trying to close up to the back here of Macau as he's going for P2. They go on to the final lap here, and the Goldwing Motorsports driver, as he comes out that final corner looking for the move for P2, and it does look as though Macau really struggling late on in the race. I think he's taken a lot out of the front tyres. The white flag is out. Barry, our flag waver, is waving the flag, and now it's going to Austin Farr here looking to go 1 step further up the podium as Jason Landry clears the corner fine. Austin Farr goes around the outside. Can he get it closed? I think he's going to be side by side out of 2, which sets him up well for 3. They make the way in the run then up towards turn number 3, and as they come on through at this time, I think Austin Farr's done it here because it looks like Macau really struggling for acceleration out the corner, and he's gained the position, and it's Austin Farr up into P2, and I think he's got it all said and done. But meanwhile, we look from them to a bit further down the road, I can tell you. that Tristan Bayless holding on to that position right now versus Horath, but he cannot find a way back past Adam Day and really in the woods right now as they make the way up into turn number 4. But as they come in, you can see Horath looking for it there, but he's not close enough to go for it, but looking very menacing and trying to really just intimidate at this point. Meanwhile, further down the road, I can tell you that Auguste Blondel is trying to look for the move on Brady for what is P6 in the M class as they make the way down into the right-hander, and as they come through at this point, well, Blondel's not going to be able to do it. He's going to have to wait, but meanwhile, we do cut away, ladies and gentlemen, because your winner for round number 2 at Summit Point Raceway overall and in the pro class, he took the lead from Macau, and he's never let go since then. Is Jason Landry taking the win ahead of Austin Farr, and Conrad Macau completes your overall podium and your pro podium with Henry Orrs P4, and then further back it does look as though in the end it is going to be Adam Day who comes home in P5 with Tristan Bayless P6 just ahead of Horath, and then it's going to be John White in P8 I should say. Duncan Maurice brings home the win in a brilliant drive there from the Goldwing Motorsports driver in the AM class, P9 overall, but our winner in the AM class ahead of Alberto Alvarez, who in the end had to bring it all back together, and it is going to be Edwin Onofore who completes our AM podium, P12 overall, a brilliant drive for Onofore on his debut, and it is Roger Ganesh P4 with another solid drive for the Sunday GT Turtles driver. Sam Van Ol's P13 in the end with that off out the final corner, costing him dearly what could have been a top 5, and it is Fernando Takahashi P14 completing the top 5 for the AM class. Auguste Blondel P6 in the AM class ahead of Patrick Brady and Albert Brand, and then we do have Rodney Felker P18, Mark Snell P19, Stefan Chalifu P20, and that is P11 in the AM class, and Tony Tran completes our drivers who finished the race on the lead lap, P21, P12 in the AM class. But a fantastic race from start to finish, and I think for Jason Landry right now, he will be thinking to himself, this has been another night to be very pleased about. 2 out of 2 in terms of the wins so far, and well, he'll be looking to make it a triple in America next week. And Duncan Maurice as well with the Goldwing Motorsports driver here. Really, he was in P2 for a long time in terms of chasing down Alvarez, but Alvarez with one mistake at turn 1, and he seized on the opportunity and just kept his head together as he brings it into the pits. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, I must say that is all we've got time for today. Thank you very much for watching. And if you do want to know more about this series, what is the Touring Car Racing Championship for 2022, alternatively just the middle of the pack racing league community who are bringing you this series, then why not check us out at our Discord, and you can see the link there on your screen. But next time it is going to be round number 3, Friday the 18th of February 2022, when we head to our final round in the United States of America, and we wrap up our America's Cup, and that is at Watkins Glen International. It will be fast, it will be furious, and well, so far we have had a repeated winner in the pro class, and we have had 2 winners in 2 races in the AM class. Could we see our first repeat winner in the AM class? Could we see a new winner in the pro class? You will have to wait and see. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, we have been the middle of the pack racing league community. I have been Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, and until next time, have a great weekend. Remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.